Hello everyone, welcome back to day 14 of our 2-week-long California road trip. Actually, it's 16 days long, so this whole time I've been lying straight to your face. But I wouldn't be complaining because it's just more content. Today we are off to visit Redwood National Park, a very remote park known to protect the tallest trees on Earth. Unfortunately though, it took greed and destruction for this park to get the designation it deserved. In the 1850s, gold was discovered all throughout northwestern California, and thousands of immigrants crowded the region in search of riches and prosperity. These people were no less dependent upon lumber, and it just so happened that the redwood trees were right there in front of them. Many years later, sawmills were being put up in large numbers, and many strands of redwood forest began to disappear. By the 1910s, concerned nearby residents began to protest and clamor for the preservation of the world's tallest trees. This led the way to 3 newly introduced state parks in the area. However, this didn't do much to stop them, especially because modern technology made it very easy for redwood trees to be cut. It wasn't until 1968 that the US government stepped in and collectively designated several groves littered with uncut redwood trees a national park. That being said, the initial boundary of the park wasn't good enough, as logging around the park continued for a whole decade. After legal battles and public pressure, the US government purchased tons of land from logging companies to add to the Redwood National Park, ending more than a century of depression amongst these beautiful trees. Together, the National Park Service and California State Parks jointly manage the remains of the redwood forest for the sake of our planet and the enjoyment of generations to come. Getting here was a long and eventful experience for us. We started in the town of Dunsmuir and opted to take a slightly longer route than usual in order to preserve gas and see the Klamath and Six Rivers National Forest. This was a 4-hour, 30-minute journey with windy roads pretty much the entire time. But if I'm being honest, it was also one of our favorite drives of the trip because of the scenery. This section of California is incredibly green and lush, so we wanted to see the potential these forests held. The drive there, as well as our first experiences in the national park, were met with a little rain, which combined with the misty cloud cover to create an incredible atmosphere. Since I don't have words to describe the beauty of this drive, I'll let the clips speak for themselves. Roll the music. As you can see, we were totally in the middle of nowhere at this point. Google Maps assured us that we were like 30 miles away from the park with about an hour to go due to the twisty roads. As we gained elevation and got closer to park boundaries, road conditions started to change. First, it narrowed in, not enough to be considered a one-lane, but pretty dang close. Then, the clouds started to cover us, meaning we couldn't see more than 30 feet away. Now the kicker is right as we see a sign saying "Welcome to Redwood National and State Parks," the roads out of nowhere become gravel and the temperature drops down to 42 degrees Fahrenheit, just 10 away from freezing.
We just saw a sign that said we entered the Redwood National and State Parks, and we are on a gravel road surrounded by cloud. You can't see anything. It looks like we're in a marshmallow. There's potholes, and it's 45 degrees. This is one of the weirdest moments ever.
This is one of my favorite national parks. The Redwood.
Luckily, the pavement returned after just 2 miles of gravel and potholes, which was pretty bizarre because it made me question why they wouldn't just pave the whole strand of road. Not to worry though, just about any vehicle could make it without any issues, but we didn't know that at the time, so the circumstances were a little bit scary. Soon after getting on the pavement, we started to see our first redwood trees and were already blown away.
He's blown away.
This is insane.
They're huge.
They're huge.
Oh my god.
They're so big.
Our first stop at the park was Elk Meadow, which is located right in front of the gravel road that takes you to Fern Canyon. Getting out of our vehicle for the first time in hours felt great, and the air was so fresh around here. The main parking area allows you to outlook the meadow as well as the foliage that surrounds it, which had mist and clouds slowly moving through them when we visited. It's said that this meadow is one of your best shots at seeing elk in the park, but if you come here, you won't have any problem finding one at all. We saw our first one wandering way out in the distance, but drove to see another angle of the meadow alongside the road and saw tons more.
Goes to elk viewing platform. Literally nothing. Sees elk on side of the road. Whole herd.
I couldn't believe just how close we were standing to these elk, not to mention that we had actually never seen an elk before today. They are considerably larger than most deer, so not only are they big, but they're some of the most beautiful animals I've ever seen. Our first hike at Redwood National Park was the Lady Bird Johnson Grove Trail, which I guess is the most popular because it by far had the most spots taken up in its parking lot. That said, we didn't have any problems with crowds as they were nicely dispersed throughout the 1.5-mile loop. Even the trees right outside the parking area were massive. Use the restroom at the bottom for reference. The trail was incredible and one of our favorite things we did while in the park. The rain, clouds, and general atmosphere were unlike any other location in California. Not to mention the flora was outstanding. First, we saw some of those trees from Castle Craig State Park who have these unique light green pine needles. Then, we spotted some colorful flower plants which come in all sorts of shapes and hues throughout the park. The plant life at every corner was some of the greenest I had ever seen. The word lush doesn't even begin to describe this place. To wrap up our first day in the park, we drove to Humboldt Lagoon State Park and walked on a short path to see the park's rugged coastline. Nothing in our itinerary at the park incorporated the coast, so my brother and I wanted to briefly take a look at it. Now, I think we can both agree that we'll have to make a conscious effort to see more of it when we one day return. This is the most beautiful section of coastline we've ever seen in the United States. Everything from the gray sand beaches, the wildflower bloom, the rocks shooting out of the water, and the redwood logs, everything was so amazing. I've never felt so bad like I needed to cry in my entire life. We actually loved it so much that we decided to sleep in a parking area right on the water so we could wake up and see it again. While Redwood National Park is filled with surprises, nothing exceeded my expectations more than this coastline. When we woke up in the morning, we were ready for another day of adventure in the park. Fern Canyon was our first stop today, and I had heard so much about it over the past few months. To get here, you must be aware of two things. One, you need to reserve a permit in advance, which will grant you a 4-hour time slot to experience the canyon. 2, you must drive along a gravel road for 8 miles, but to be honest, they were the most nicely maintained non-paved roads I had ever seen. Any car can make it until you get to a large body of water towards the end where you'll have to decide whether or not it's worth the risk.
My toxic trait is thinking we could have easily gotten through this, but not really worth the risk, huh?
I'm almost confident we could have made it since it wasn't too deep at the time of our visit, but we were fine by walking a little extra and seeing more of the environment, so we parked right beforehand. Fern Canyon is a hidden gem, with ferns lining the narrow gorge carved by the home creek, which yes, flows through the canyon, so bring waterproof hiking boots. Anyways, with that being said, enjoy yet another compilation. Fern Canyon is a haven for plant life, as one of the most aesthetically pleasing places we visited in the state. Particularly when the fern walls go vertical and it looks like you're in a maze, I was in complete awe. No doubt, this is my top recommendation at Redwood National Park, so book those reservations and get out there. Also, quick shout out to the elk we saw on our way out. They were absolutely incredible per usual. Now, another trail you'll need a permit to experience is the Tall Trees Grove hike. This is once again accessed by a long gravel road, and while it isn't as well maintained as the road to Fern Canyon, it's still easily accessible for anyone. 24 hours before your time slot, you'll be sent a code for a lock that opens a gate for your vehicle. It very much felt like we were living in royalty. The 3.3-mile loop has 748 feet of elevation that can be tough on your legs if you aren't prepared. I just so happened to sprain my ankle right before this hike, so I had a horrible time getting back up to the parking lot. That said, the scenery was amazing and quite reminiscent of the Ladybird Grove trail that we did a day prior. Only these trees are known to be some of the tallest amongst all currently living redwoods. I can confirm that once you reach the grove, the trees are slightly tall, just a little bit. But in all seriousness, I've never felt more dwarfed in my life. It was amazing. We were also lucky enough to see 2 deer in a meadow just outside the grove, which was refreshing after seeing so many elk. After taking in the trees, we got back to our car for a 2-hour drive south to Avenue of the Giants. While technically not a part of national park boundaries, the redwood trees on the route very much reflect the theme of this video, so I include it anyways. Avenue of the Giants is a 31-mile stretch of road that acts as a scenic alternative while driving Highway 101. The route not only offers visitors the opportunity to see redwood trees and a gorgeous river, but also to get out of their car and hike into some more groves. After 2 long days of exploring this type of landscape, and with an ankle that was ready for the trip to end in totality, we just stuck to the drive, which was good enough for me. You still get 30 pure minutes to take in stunning redwood views if you don't get out of the car, which is why you're a monster if you decide to stay on Highway 101. Okay, maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but it was really awesome. Anyways, that's gonna wrap up our visit to the incredible Redwood National Park. Even though there's still plenty of sunlight, we had a 4-hour drive to San Francisco that we needed to conquer today. The past 2 days at this park have been some of the most memorable on the trip for me. Not only did we get to see some of my favorite scenery in any national park, but to be honest, this is the most green, lush part of the country I've ever seen. A true testament to California's diversity. It's hard to believe we were at Death Valley 10 days ago. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and turn on post notifications. That way you don't miss tomorrow's adventure exploring Highway 1 and the surrounding California coast. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.